Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to the A Simulations channel. Today, I'm going to be going over my new settings because with Microsoft Flight Simulator things change often, and this is for the latest update. I just installed it, and we're getting really good frame rate with my sim here, which is running the entire panel, screen right there, and then also the main screen right there. So, got a wraparound view going, plus everything in there with multiple other screens, and all of that is being run by this computer right here. So this is an HP Omen 2020 version. It has a RTX 2070 with Max Q, i7 10th gen CPU, 16 gigs of RAM. This is DDR4, and then it's running on an SSD. So average specs for a gaming computer, and I'll have a link down below where you can see my full specs. But this computer runs the entire simulator completely. Alright, so in the sim here, I have the frame per second counter pulled up, and you can see I'm getting a very strong 42, 43 frames per second, and it's limited by the CPU. So as the sim flies and we get up, it's having to load more visual stuff. It's very well balanced between the GPU and CPU. So if you have similar specs to this, these settings are going to work great for you. And you might even have better performance because unless you're running a simulator like this takes up a lot of performance as well, because I'm having to run screen here, not to mention all the other peripherals. So, but yeah, look at that, 43 frames per second, and I'm running with these visuals, which are pretty darn high. Okay, so to change your settings, you can go into the sim and click Escape. This will bring up this menu, and then you're going to go to your General Options, and this is where all your settings are. So I'm running full screen 1920 by 1080. That's this main display here. This side screen is configured in a separate tab. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm using NVIDIA DLSS. It helps a lot with the frame rate. It's set to quality. AMD Fidelity Effect Sharpening is set to 30. This is a really good balance between kind of your GPU. If you're having problems with your GPU, dropping this can increase your performance and shift it back to the main thread. So trying to balance between your CPU and GPU is really good to getting consistent frame rates. So next, NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency, I keep that on, but I keep VSYNC off. So I've just found that to be the best combination. And then we'll scroll down here. I'm running DX12. There's, in my testing at least, minimal difference between the two, but DX12 over time will just continually get better. So I run that right now. Terrain level of detail, 75. This is a very important setting to be changing. It adjusts your frame rate pretty substantially. So I used to be running it at 50, but I've actually been able to bump it up to 75 and improve my frame rate by about 20 frames per second. So the sims definitely got better, but I've also improved some of my other settings. So 75, the default is 100, and this is just basically how far out your terrain is actually going to be loading. And if you have questions about any of this, if you hover over it, you'll get a description. It's covered up right now by the frame rate, but it'll read out specifically what's happening. Off-screen terrain pre-cache, I keep this set to low. I'm not, yanking banking, so I don't need to have everything pre-rendered. And this is basically just saying, I see this, but it might render all the way back to there so that when I'm turning, there's no popping. So I just don't think that's necessary. I keep it set to the lowest. Terrain vector data, I have set to high. Buildings are medium, trees are medium, and grass and bushes are also medium. Objects level of detail is 75. So again, this is a really big frame rate decider. This will load, or basically change like how far out you see stuff, when does it get loaded in at higher resolution. So even though I see, all the way down there, this will be loaded in at much lower resolution than it is, up here. So, and as things get closer, they improve in detail. But this is a pretty good one. This, I think, I would say will decide your frame rate the most, maybe by resolution as well. Resolution, I think, and this are the two biggest things you can change. Volumetric clouds are set to medium. Texture resolution is high. Anisotropic filtering is 4 times. Texture supersampling 2x2. Texture synthesis is medium. Water waves are set to low. Shadow maps are set to 768. Terrain shadows 512. Contact shadows are medium. Windshield effects are also medium. Ambient occlusions medium. Cubemap Reflections 192. Raymarched reflections medium. Light shafts medium. Bloom is on. Depth of field is set to medium. And actually, I'm realizing that I should have that off. That'll improve my frame rate even more. Alright, looking way down here, I just have the rest of these basically set to off and low. and that's going to be motion blur, lens correction, lens flare, and glass cockpit refresh rate. Alright, I'm going to take a second to explain some of these just because they do change a little bit what you're seeing, and they might have a significant frame rate impact. So terrain shadows is when you're flying over the ground and the sun's at a low angle, the hills will add more of a shadow. It can usually darken the landscape a little bit, and can look really nice, especially if you're flying in mountainous areas. So I don't have it all the way off, but I have it turned down fairly low, so it's still sea shadows, but they're not incredibly crisp. I don't think they need to be. Contact shadows. This is basically all of the shadows that are in the airplane. So when you're flying around and you have your wing casting a shadow in the cockpit. Since I'm running a cockpit like this, I actually need to have this off. I know I messed that up, and I can have it set to low, or off actually. I can only have it all the way down to off, and this will, I don't need it rendering shadows in the cockpit. Now if you're running not a simulator like this, having it set to medium is what I recommend. And then windshield effects are set to medium. This is like when you're flying through rain, stuff like that. It'll be all the individual raindrops you see on the windshield. Ambient occlusion is kind of like the brightness you'll see reflecting off stuff. So when the sun is shining on something, it'll be that reflection. So this one can change how the sim looks pretty substantially. So I kind of have it balanced around medium. It looks good, but it doesn't have a crazy frame rate impact. Cubemap Reflections and Raymarched Reflections, these are basically just changing reflections in like puddles and water. So for instance, after you have it set to rain and then turn it off, you'll have puddles on the ground. It'll be the reflections of buildings in that, or the reflections of buildings in like lakes and oceans, stuff like that. So I don't fly around tons of water, so I have them set a little bit lower, but I think this is a good balance between where they, you still see reflections, they look nice, but it's not overkill. Okay, for the next main tab we're going to want to change is traffic. So go ahead and click on traffic. I have it set to aircraft traffic type off. So don't have any airplanes flying around that are generated. That tanks your frame rate substantially. So I have all that off. And then what I do have is aircraft on the ground. So when you're flying, you won't see airplanes flying around, but you'll have airport activity. So I have this set to 30, aircraft ground density, also 30. And sorry, this top one is vehicles. So this is like trucks and fuel trucks driving around. So 30, 30, and then workers, which are the people walking around, that's also set to 30. So it's a good balance between what it should actually look like and then not, too crazy on the frame rate. For boats, I have it set to 10, road vehicles 40. So I do want to see a lot of cars driving around, so I have it set a little bit higher. Ships and ferries are set to 10. And then fauna is set to 100. These are going to be like animals, like flamingos, but those are in a very select few places in the world, so that doesn't matter much, just have it maxed out. And then down here again, I have generic aircraft models set to on, and that's for AI traffic and multiplayer. And then show multiplayer in close proximity, I have off, and then traffic variety is set to medium. So that's the best balance of settings I have for traffic. Okay, so now this is how I set up the side screen. I have a dedicated video on this, but I'm just showing you my settings for it. So under the experimental tab, which right down there, you'll click on that and this will open up the window for your side screen. So here you can see I have it running 1600 by 900 with a 90-degree offset, and it's running windowed mode even though I'm technically running full screen. There's a weird bug where it like duplicates these, and it's a whole thing, but it doesn't impact your frame rate having two of them. So 1600 by 900, that's what I'm running, and then 1920 by 1080 for the main screen. Okay, and once you're done with all this, just go ahead and click your options again, apply and save, and then you'll click resume. And there you go. So that's the settings I'm running. They work really well for me in my sim. And frame rate's pretty good, very consistent, even as there's people walking around and lots of things going on at the airport. And the airport does feel lively because there's, you'll see like forklifts driving around, there's trucks, fuel trucks, there's airplanes, so it's a lively airport, much better than some of the older sims that are. Alright everybody, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I will have a link in one of the corners of a full settings deep dive I did a couple of sim updates ago. It'll just explain a little bit more in depth what each setting does, but these are the settings I'm running right now, and as you saw, it gives me really good frame rate with everything running. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment, and if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps me a whole lot with the YouTube algorithm. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.